When you're starting with SolidWorks, always make sure you start by building a new part. We'll learn how to make an assembly later. Before you can make a three-dimensional figure, you first have to use Sketch to draw the base of the figure in 2 dimensions. So click on Sketch. It's going to ask you to pick a plane. The plane doesn't really matter, but it helps to remember which one you picked so that in the future, when you add more things to it, you'll know which plane you're using. So I typically pick front plane. We're going to start to build a box by using the Draw a Corner Rectangle tool. Notice that there's a red arrow right here that shows the center of your X and Y axis. If you click right on the middle, an orange dot appears. If you click there, the corner rectangle will start from that spot. At first, there are no dimensions. So we're going to use the Smart Dimension tool to give the dimensions that we want. Click on the line and drag it out, and then you can type in any dimension you want. Let's make this 3 inches. Now do the same thing for the other side of the rectangle. Let's make it 2 inches. Notice that the rectangle lines have now turned black instead of blue. That means that the dimensions are all defined. If you're satisfied with your figure, click on the green check mark. Alright, so now let's make it 3-dimensional. To do that, we have to exit the sketch, and we're going to click on Features. Extruded Boss Base will make it extrude out into 3 dimensions. There's usually a default for how thick it starts out. Of course, we want a larger box than this. So I'm going to make my box 3.5 inches tall. If ever your figure is outside of the screen, you can zoom in and out using a mouse scroll wheel. You can also use Control 8, and that'll allow you to face your figure directly head-on. You can also use the arrow buttons to simply look at it from different angles. So right now we have a cube. However, it's not hollow, and we want it to be hollow to be a box. So the next tool we're going to use is called Shell. When you click on Shell, it's going to ask you where you want to shell it from. We're going to click right here. That's going to be the top of our box. You can also do a preview. The yellow lines are signifying how thick or thin the outside walls of your shell are going to be. So this is quite thin right now. It's only 0.1 inches. Let's make the walls 0.2 inches thick. So notice the yellow lines moved. If we're okay with that, click the check, and now you have a hollow box. We left off with an empty box. We now want to add some features to it. The first thing we're going to do is add a hole. So to do that, you want to click on Sketch. It's going to ask you what plane you want. Pick the side of the box, so you can rotate it around, and pick the side on which you want the hole. That's now going to be your primary plane. If you click Control 8, it'll zoom in onto that side of the box. So we're going to draw a circle. And just like before, use Smart Dimension to define how large it is. So we're going to make our circle exactly 0.5 inches in diameter. You can also use Smart Dimension to move the circle to the exact location that you want. So by clicking on the center of the circle, then hold down Control and click on the side of the box, it'll tell you how far apart that is. Let's make it 1.25 inches away from that side. And then use the same exact thing to now click on the circle and the bottom of the box. And let's move it 2 inches from the bottom. Once you're satisfied with where the circle is, exit your sketch Notice it is not a hole yet. That's because that's under Features. So you're going to click on Features, Extruded Cut, and it will start to cut this hole. Right now it's cutting it all the way through the box, so you can change how much you want to cut. If you only cut in, let's say 1 inch, then you will have a hole going through one side of your box. You can edit this feature if you wish, so click on the Cut Extrude over here, edit the feature. Let's say you wanted the hole to go all the way through to the other side. Simply make it a larger cut, and now the hole will go all the way through and you have 2 holes. Now that we have a box with a hole, let's add some more features to streamline it. One of my favorite features is the Fillet tool. When you click on this, you can take off these rough corners and smooth them out. Notice that it creates a rounded edge, and you can adjust the radius to make it more or less rounded as you wish. Let's keep it at 0.2 inch radius. You can also click on several different edges at once so that it will fillet all of them at the same time. Right now the yellow is just the preview. So let's go all the way around the edges. Then click OK. And our box is now much softer and rounder. Another feature you may wish to use is to add text to your box. So click on the text tool, type in what you wish to write, and change the font style and font size to whatever you prefer. Let's make it larger. Then click on the location that you want to put your text and check OK. So now that word will print on that side. And just like you did with your holes, you can move it to a specific location using Smart Dimension. So let's put it exactly 1 inch from that side. There are other uses for the Fillet tool. For example, let's say instead of drawing a circle for our hole, we had drawn a square. If you create a hole out of this, the problem is that the 3D printer cannot print straight edges like this. So it prints from the bottom up, and it could print this bottom part of the square, but at the top, these corners would have no support and the top would collapse down. So one thing you can do is create a fillet of these inner edges, probably not quite this much. Let's narrow it down to only 0.05 inches, and also the other corner. So by rounding it out, the printer can now handle this hole. Notice though, this is quite a small hole. If you have a larger hole, even this is not enough, and what you will need to do is create supports. So let's create a new sketch, same side, but let's make a larger rectangle. So even with the fillet tool, this top edge is way too wide across to have enough support, and it would collapse during the 3D printing process. What this means is we have to create smaller supports that will be part of the printing process, but which can be removed later. To do that, click on this inner ledge, and let's zoom in on it. And let's draw little corner rectangles. We're also going to create a linear sketch pattern all the way over to the other side of this box, which is probably at least 1.5 inches across. You can see where the arrow went. And we're going to increase the number of copies to several. And what we're trying to do is actually copy the entire rectangle, not just one line. There you go. So it should copy all of those. And it should copy it. Oh, oops, this is actually the distance between them. Let's do that. Okay, so let's increase the number here. 7, 8. That seems pretty good. Alright, so now that you have these evenly spaced little rectangles, we're going to exit the sketch and we are going to extrude them. I didn't know what it wanted to extrude, so let's click on the sketch. Let's extrude them, and we're going to extrude them up. You don't have to extrude them quite that much. Probably, let's see, 0.7 inches should be enough. Alright, so now what you actually have here can be a little bit difficult to tell, but there are little tiny supports in that rectangular hole, and those can be ripped out later after the printing process.